Oh boy, Tesla bulls are back in charge. If you take a look at the technicals, well, you couldn't ask for anything better. If you take a look at the option activity, you couldn't ask for anything better. Following Tesla earnings heading into today's after hours, which is going to be by far the most important day of earnings season. After today, you're going to have a much better outlook on the markets or perception of where the markets are going, because Microsoft and Google control 16% of the NASDAQ. So I think it's pretty important. But Tesla stock is definitely leading the way higher, up about 2% at the time of recording this video. We're going to get into all of the Tesla stock news that you need to know, and there is no shortage of it. We're also going to get into what's happening out there with the dollar, with bonds, with gold, with this Israel conflict, as well as JP Morgan's longtime CEO, Jamie Dimon, had some very harsh things to say about the Fed over in Saudi Arabia today. And he says anything can happen for 2024. You shouldn't assume you know, just like the Fed has been dead wrong over the past 18 months. So yeah, we have a lot to get into in a very short amount of time. If you own Tesla stock, if you're looking to acquire more Tesla stock, or at the very least you want to stay up to date with all of this information, which will help you make more money, at the very least you will leave these videos a more knowledgeable, smarter, hopefully more profitable investor and or trader. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, and let's get into it. Start with the option activity, because I like to look at options. You can get a sense of how people are positioning their portfolios, their positions with the options, and the bulls are definitely in charge of Tesla options. That's clear. You have seen 694 orders today, totaling $151 million, with a positive order value of 71%. This follows yesterday's option flow of $1.55 billion with a positive order value of 70%. So what the options are telling you is Tesla stock is going higher from here and potentially much higher from here. Now, we have a Middle East crisis that is going on. We still do have very high bond yields. We have an upcoming Fed meeting. We have big economic data throughout this rest of this week, and we have the rest of earnings season to get into. So there's other things that will potentially affect Tesla and or the broader markets, but if nothing crazy happens, I expect Tesla stock's going to go higher from here. Probably one of the biggest reasons why Tesla stock is doing so well today, well outpacing the broader markets, is because China delivery numbers of 8.1 thousand vehicles, well, that's pretty dang good. That's better than this same week last year. And while everyone is so down and out on Tesla right now, following Tesla earnings, Tesla's still delivering thousands, tens of thousands of vehicles every week. And this is yet again more confirmation of that. Sure, Tesla delivered 8.1 thousand deliveries in China last week. But what about the rest of the world? You're looking at tens of thousands of deliveries last week. And if I were to go out on a limb, this is probably having the bullish effect on Tesla. At one point, Tesla stock was up almost 5% today. As Sawyer Merritt says, Tesla needs to deliver an average of 5,173 cars per day in Q4 to hit their 1.8 million delivery target for 2023. That would be an all-time high quarterly delivery record. Tesla reiterated their 1.8 million target last week, so they are clearly confident Q4 will be good. Brandenburg's State Office of the Environment rejected objections against Tesla's plans to expand Gigafactory Berlin. Tesla aims to increase its vehicle production capacity from 500,000 units per year to 1 million cars annually. Tesla Model 3 Highland deliveries in Dubai are expected to start this week. GM today withdrew its 2023 profit outlook, blaming the rising cost of UAW strikes, and CEO Mary Barra said the automaker will slow its electric vehicle strategy to put profits ahead of sales targets. The UAW strike has cost GM $200 million in Q3 and $600 million so far in Q4. This just puts Tesla's lead so much further ahead of these legacy OEMs. General Motors is losing about $29 million per day due to this UAW strike so far in Q4. When all things are said and done, Q4 is going to be a multi-billion-dollar loss or hit to revenue for GM. GM says it is slowing the launch of several EV models to cut their cost and pulling back on EV product spending. GM is abandoning a goal of building 400,000 EVs from 2022 through mid-2024. Barra said GM has work to do to hit its low to mid-single-digit earnings before interest and taxes EBIT margin target for 2025. To make matters even worse, Cruise, the Robo-Taxi unit that GM owns, well, their loss has widened to $732 million in Q3 versus $500 million in Q2 2022. Cruise has now lost over $1.9 billion year to date. And apparently when it rains, it pours. The UAW has just announced it is expanding its strike to GM's largest and most profitable plant in the world. 5,000 workers will walk out. This plant makes the very profitable Chevy Tahoe, Chevy Suburban, GMC Yukon, and Cadillac Escalade. GM was already losing $29 million per day to the UAW strike. Now this new strike expansion will result in that number rising by a lot. The UAW is hitting GM where it hurts the most, Arlington Assembly Plant. There is now 45,000 UAW members currently on strike. A new Tesla supercharger opened in France. 12 of these V4 superchargers in Vannes, France. Hyundai said it sold 17,563 battery electric vehicles in September, down 7% year over year. Tesla says it wants to start expanding its Giga Berlin factory in the first half of 2024. This was announced by Tesla representatives on the sidelines of a public debate on the expansion plans. It looks like this is happening just as Tesla wants. We do have a pretty big rumor as well. Apple has officially announced they are going to do an Apple event on October 30th at 8 p.m. called Scary Fast. And this is the first night event in quite a while. A lot of people are speculating maybe this is or has something to do with the Apple car, Scary Fast. I mean, put the two together, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. But let's be honest, even if this rumor is true that Apple is really going to give us more details on their car initiatives, let's be honest, it's going to be a very long time before Apple has a car on the road. Very, very long time. So you have nothing to worry about with Tesla. Tesla's Model 3 Highland's first delivery just happened in France. This is some pretty bad news for the overall driverless vehicle sector. Not great news for Tesla's FSD as well. It says General Motors' Cruise Robo-Taxi unit is being suspended by the California Department of Motor Vehicles from operating driverless vehicles in the state, effective immediately. So there shouldn't be any Cruise vehicles out on the road even right now. They are not to operate. This is not exactly the greatest news for Tesla as well. We know Tesla's software is going to be highly superior compared to these guys. But if the initial kind of requesters of permits and the first to it, like a Cruise, if they're having a hard time, it's not going to make that course ahead easier for Tesla. You want to see Cruise do well in autonomous driving. The market's huge. Big enough for Tesla, Cruise, whoever else wants to be a part of it. But this is not great. Mercedes has announced pricing for its all-electric 2024 Maybach EQS 680 SUV. The EV starts at $181,050. With options, it's expected to cost over $215,000. I think they're just tripping at this point. That's ridiculous. Beautiful and all. Yeah, that is beautiful. But nobody's really gonna seriously pay this. At least it's not going to be a successful mass market product. According to crowdsourced data at supercharge.info, Mojave, California marks 2,000 open and active supercharger locations in the USA. Merritt gives his opinion on FSD and really in reference to what Cruise is going through. Sawyer Merritt says Tesla's advantage with their full self-driving tech is their massive amount of real-world data and compute capability. The real world is insanely complex, and running computer simulations that isn't the same as testing in the real world at mass scale without pre-mapping areas. Tesla has a massive fleet it can pull data from. Cruise, not so much, and I happen to agree here. Tesla's sales in Europe compared to total sales. If you look at total sales, you're sitting at about 3 million here, and this was for Q3 2023, about 100,000 sales in Europe. And Tesla actually increased their market share from 2.72% to 2.78%. And the battery electric vehicle sector did increase its market share from 15.1% to 17.2% on a quarter-over-quarter basis. That's some very impressive growth for EVs. Taking a look at Tesla's inventory numbers, we can see the Model Y is increasing a little bit, where everything else is coming down or staying roughly flat. Trends data for Tesla is indicating a slight uptick in all of their models. I guess technically, besides the Model Y, that is unchanged from the last update we got from Google Trends. If you look at this chart of pre-election year seasonal patterns since 1949 and the NASDAQ since 1971, you'll see we're October 24th today, so we're around here. You do tend to bottom by the beginning of November, first week or so of November. Kind of a little bit of chop in November. You come down, hit a secondary low towards the end of November, and then you're off to the races throughout December. This would be, I believe, that Santa Claus rally that usually takes place in December. So this is obviously not a guarantee that stocks will rally. There's a lot of exterior things that are going on right now that will affect our markets, that will affect Tesla. But history would suggest that we're going to rally towards the end of this year. I think the first thing we have to get through is earnings season. Now, if you are someone that is looking to trade any of these earnings this week, then you would want to know what's priced in by the markets, right? Well, yeah, Microsoft has about 4.5% priced in by the market makers. Google is over 6%. So markets are expecting Google to move a lot more than Microsoft, which is interesting because usually Google and Microsoft are pretty equivalent. Even Texas Instruments is expected to move more than a Microsoft. So I do have a trade on Microsoft. We made a couple trades for earnings in the morning. Those hit, those did well. But yeah, Microsoft's one, and then Snapchat's another one that I actually put a trade on today as well. There's been some leaked earnings potentially with Snapchat. We have a little bit better of an understanding of maybe what Snapchat is going to say, so I feel a little bit more confident in that one as well. Nonetheless, if you guys want to come trade with us, get access to all of my trades every time I make them, link down below in the description of this video. Never financial advice, but it's a good place to start, especially if you have questions, you don't even know what an option is, you've wanted to start trading, start learning. Well, that can be a great tool for you. Or if you're more experienced, I mean, that's a great tool for you as well. Now, Jamie Dimon today, he's the longtime CEO of JP Morgan Chase. Jamie Dimon's one of the most well-connected individuals in the world. Like, you're up there with the president or the administration of the president, Elon, Jamie Dimon. That is probably how it goes, right? Those are some of the most interconnected people in the world that knows what's happening. Like, if anyone could predict a recession, it's probably going to be Jamie Dimon, or, you know, one of these three entities. Or no, obviously they're not going to publicly predict anything, but if they knew, well, if anyone knew, it'd probably be them. Okay, he said Jamie Dimon rips central banks for being 100% dead wrong on economic forecasts. Now, he just did the same thing not too long ago and said that this was the most dangerous time that we have lived through in a very long time. Now, what he said today is, quote, prepare for possibilities and probabilities, not calling one's course of action, since I've never seen anyone call it. He said during a round panel discussion in Saudi Arabia, quote, I want to point out the central banks 18 months ago were 100% dead wrong, he added. I would be quite cautious about what might happen next year. That sounds a little ominous. Diamond criticized the omnipotent feeling that central banks and governments can manage through all this stuff. I'm cautious, he says. I don't think it makes a piece of difference whether rates go up 25 basis points or more, like zero, none, nada. Basically, raising rates at this point doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. It's not going to do anything to inflation. It's not going to do anything to anything. He says, whether the whole curve goes up 100 basis points, I would be prepared for it, he added. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I look at what we're seeing today, more like the 70s, a lot of spending, a lot of this can be wasted. And that would be like rates going up another percentage point. That would be like the 10-year treasury yields at 6%. He's saying that could happen. Or he's saying that maybe all this spending just goes down the tube. Maybe you see spending just fall off and you go into a recession. That's also a possibility, and I think that's what he's saying here. He says, elsewhere in finance, Diamond said he supports ESG principles but criticized the government for playing whack-a-mole with no concerted strategy. You can't build pipelines to reduce coal emissions. You can't get the permits to build solar and wind and things like that, he said. So we better get our act together. Saying the permitting process just to construct anything or get anything done is very unfavorable. And I think Tesla would agree with that. Tesla's been trying to get a lithium mine going for over 2 years now in the US. Now let's talk a little Middle East conflict, because that is, again, the single biggest catalyst that could give you huge downside. I don't think earnings are going to give you big downside. I don't think it's likely the economic data gives you big downside. Is it possible? Yeah. Is it over 50% of a probability? No, I think this conflict in the Middle East, unfortunately, is going to get worse before it gets better. It's probably over a 50% chance that it does give you big downside in our markets. That's why I think it's very important to stay up to date with this developing situation. Now, one of the biggest stories of news today is that the White House has ordered the Department of Defense to begin preparing contingency plans for a worst-case scenario in the Middle East, which could require the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of U.S. nationals from the region, with significant concern for the roughly 600,000 Americans in Lebanon and in Israel. So they're making contingency plans for a full-scale evacuation of multiple countries in the worst case scenario. And according to US officials, Iran is seeking to escalate conflict in the region. We don't know exactly what this means, how they are trying to escalate the conflict in the region, but it doesn't sound great, especially given all of the other news that we have seen and heard over the past couple of days. Seems like if Israel is going to do something, they're going to have to do it soon, because a lot of people are really not supporting this constant bombardment. And leave your political views aside. Strictly speaking, on the markets and the probable outcomes, it's probable this situation does either get resolved quickly, or at least we get an indication that it's going to take a long time. Okay, it's either going to take a long time or it's going to get resolved pretty quickly. The UN is calling for a ceasefire at this point. Jordan's calling for a ceasefire. Saudi Arabia is calling for a ceasefire. That's the biggest news that we really got today, was multiple countries calling for a ceasefire. Well, that just means you have to get going on something. So hopefully there is a ceasefire. Hopefully everything goes back to normal and all is fine and all is dandy. Does that seem likely? Probably not. The U.S. did say today that a ceasefire only benefits Hamas. So basically saying it's not going to happen. But again, you can't just keep food out, water out, electricity out for millions of people and not be taking steps to get the situation over with, aka eliminate Hamas. Okay, so you're coming within the time period of any day now. You could get that news that let's just leave it at that. You could get the news, and that's probably not going to be a great day for our markets. Now, Tesla stock, if you take a look at the stock on a technical basis, very encouraged by what we are seeing today. Tesla's 200-day moving average is at $215.70 per share. Tesla is currently at $216.10 per share. So you are above this by about 40 cents or so at the time of recording this video. Tesla stock's up almost 2%. If you can get a close above your 200-day moving average, yeah, Tesla stock is going a lot higher from here, guys. That means maybe everyone just got faked out on the earnings. Maybe not. Maybe by the end of the day, the last couple of minutes here of trading, Tesla stock could fall under the 200-day moving average. Then you're just going to get rejected and fall back down lower. But if you close above that 200-day moving average, that's not a small level, right? If you close above that 200-day moving average, that's a sign you're going higher. Again, if you don't, then you're going to fall. Can you get a false breakout, right? Can you get a false confirmation of a level proves to not be correct, maybe tomorrow or the next day? Sure, that's possible, but over 50% of the time, if you get a rejection and flush through an important level, you bounce up and you retake that, about 65% of the time, you go higher, not back down lower. So this is actually a really good sign for Tesla bulls. I hope that we go lower because I'm a Tesla bull, but I would like to pick up as many shares as possible at cheaper prices. But it's not looking likely right now. 2024, that's a different story. The economy, that's a different story. This Middle East crisis, if that gets worse, obviously that's going to have a negative effect. But minus anything negative happening, yeah, you're probably going higher with Tesla. And I'm sorry to say that if you're betting against Tesla or you don't have an interest to see Tesla stock go higher, but that's just what everything says right now. Again, I would like to point you to the RSI, in which anytime you hit 30 or under 30, you get a bounce. So I was very clear. I said the beginning of this week, you were probably going to get a bounce. Like, odds are you're going to get a bounce. What happened on Monday? Well, that was yesterday. You hit a low of $202.51. You were down quite a bit at one point. You closed the day at $212.08. You bounced about $10 from the low, and now today you're at $216. So you've bounced about $14 since yesterday's low. That's quite a bounce, even by Tesla standards. You haven't even moved on the RSI. You're still at almost 31. Technically, you were at like 27, but you're still at that oversold line. Normally, if Tesla goes oversold, you rally to 70 within the next couple of weeks or month or so. Every time. Literally every single time. Take this all the way back to 2020, 2019, does not matter. Anytime you hit 30, like where my cursor is, you shoot up to 70. You come down, you hit 30. I mean, I guess this time you shot up to like 64. Close enough. That was a very bullish kind of period of time as well. You hit 30. Boom. You shoot right back up. You hit 30. Within like 2 months here, you hit 70. You hit 30. Boom. Back to 70. Hit 30 in December, January of 2022. Boom. You rallied right back up to hit the 70 on the RSI, literally going from $100 to $218. Just even more recently, back in April, May, you hit 30 on the RSI, and you boom, hit 70. A couple months later, went from 160 to about 300. Back here, you hit 30. You bounced right literally on the 30 line. That was on August 18th. What Tesla stock do? Went from 212 to about 280 on the high end. Pretty decent little rally. Did not quite get to 70, but it did get again to about 63, 64. And then now you're at 30. I would argue, even if you don't hit 70, you're probably going to get pretty high on the RSI, and that would constitute a much larger bounce from here. So really, either way you put it, if you look at the technicals, really if you look at anything, it's very supportive of a continued move higher with Tesla. Again, as long as all hell does not break loose around the globe with economic data, with the Fed, then minus that, Tesla stock's going higher. Unfortunately, you cannot predict those things to a degree of accuracy and know. You just never know what's going to happen. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, we know the data reports coming out on Thursday are going to be pretty important. The data we get tomorrow as well is going to be important. At the video at 9 p.m. tonight, we're going to go over that a little bit more in depth. So that's definitely one you want to be paying attention to when that video does come out. But nonetheless, guys, Tesla stock is very bullish. As far as that upside bounce, I'm still targeting that 232 right here, roughly that 8-day moving average. That is probably at the bare minimum where you go. That's still going to be like a $15 move higher from here. All in all, that would be a $30+ move from the lows that you just seen yesterday. So I do expect some upside from here. Again, anything can happen out there in the markets. That is pretty much all of what you need to know for the day today. It's been a pretty slow day. Again, there really wasn't a lot of economic data. There really wasn't a lot of Middle East headlines. There wasn't much that actually affected our markets today. The biggest thing is, again, TLT up another 1% today. Bond yields are falling. That's great. That's great news. And that's what stocks have been trading off of recently. So hopefully this does continue. If it does, you're probably going to get more upside in the markets. I have a feeling TLT is rising because of geopolitical tensions, as well, kind of like fear, right? People want to preserve their money, buy treasuries, buy gold, things of that nature. And then also a deteriorating economic situation. And that's also not the greatest thing as well. You don't want to see treasury yields falling on bad news. That's just usually not the best position to be in. But short term, algorithms are loving it. So hey, we'll just go with the flow. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Let me know if you have questions, if you're confused, if you're lost on any of the information that was said here in this video. Let me know as well, what do you think is coming next for Tesla stock? Why do you think Tesla stock looks so bullish now after being so bearish following earnings? Do you think there is something specific that markets are paying attention to? Maybe I missed? Who knows? The option activity's very bullish. The technicals so far today, very bullish. Maybe there's something I'm missing out there. Maybe there's a bigger reason why we're seeing so much bullishness. Maybe it's just because, hey, 2024, probably going to be a great year for Tesla. That would also make sense. So if you guys would like to come trade with us live in real time, link down below in the description of this video as well. My name is Michael Tyler. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.